In this video, we're going to discuss why most software engineers follow a very specific career path. While following a clearly defined career path might sound boring to you, it's proved successful for engineers, resulting in large sums of money, financial stability, good job security, and the ability to work on projects that they're passionate about. And if those things sound like things that you're interested in, be sure to stay till the end of the video where I'll give you my tips for how to fast track past the very first step in the process. Throughout my time in the software engineering industry, I've realized that there's three major stages that most software engineers go through during their career. And the first stage is literally just getting a fucking job. This is unfortunately probably the stage that most of us are all too familiar with, and I know I was coming out of college. During my last year, my computer science degree at New York University, literally landing a software engineering job was the only thing that was on my mind. So much so that I actually got up every single morning and was in the library by about 8 a.m. While I'd always leave the library to go to classes in the gym, I largely would go right back to the library and then stay there until I left right around midnight. While this might sound really depressing to you, looking back, it's weirdly nostalgic. There's something really satisfying knowing that my hard work paid off and that it actually ended up allowing me to get an offer the night before I graduated from NYU from a small startup in New York City. And while I was really happy and excited to have received a job offer for being a software engineer, I remember I felt really strange at this time. Tons of my friends and people that I was in classes with at this time were landing jobs and getting offers from companies that I actually wanted to work at. And this is what I think accurately defines the step that many people in and out of tech go through. And that is that you take a job because it's a job. It pays the bills, it keeps you employed, and it hopefully allows you to do some of the things that you enjoy outside of work. But realistically, it's actually a trade of your time for the company's money while you figure out how to move on to bigger and better things that you're actually interested in. And this is how I felt about my first job. And don't get me wrong, I was definitely very thankful to be employed coming out of college. It wasn't my favorite experience, but it did allow me to live in New York City with my friends and call myself a software engineer, which to this day has changed my life forever. But like any job, there were problems, the biggest of which for me were lack of mentorship and general training. To put things in perspective, I had just graduated from a computer science degree at New York University where I learned things like scheduling algorithms, low-level operating systems, memory management, computer hardware, and how to code in a few programming languages. What I didn't learn is how to actually develop real-world software. The simplest of concepts like writing tests, logging, debugging, deploying, and even requests just simply being made over a network were foreign to me. Today, it makes me cringe even admitting this, but I mean, hey, we all start somewhere. What I desperately wanted was for someone to tell me, and better yet, teach me how to be a good software engineer. And sadly, I didn't feel like this is something I was able to find in my current job. Instead, I started thinking about places where I might actually be able to learn these things, and so I started turning my attention to larger tech companies. Larger companies have more engineers, and being around more engineers allows me to be around engineers who have more experience. And being around engineers who have more experience, I figured would allow me to learn faster. And this brings us to the second stage where most software engineers tend to land, which is big tech. Working in big tech is alluring for many reasons, but I still believe one of the most appealing, less talked about reasons is the kinds of people that you get to work with. And given the sheer amount of people who end up opting to work in big tech, I don't really think I'm alone in this belief. Working at larger, more structured companies has massive benefits when it comes to mentorship and learning. Larger tech companies tend to have very structured onboarding processes and countless resources to help you learn. In fact, it's not uncommon for new hires at large tech companies to go to some sort of 6 to 8 week boot camp or onboarding program that's company-wide before they even jump into their own team's code bases. You contrast this with smaller companies, it's often a very different experience where you're typically just handed a laptop and then expected to dive in.
What does the first B stand for?
What are we doing?
Different strokes for different folks, but I do think that the importance of learning your ABCs of software engineering as soon as possible cannot be overstated. With a larger abundance of learning resources and working in more mature code bases can definitely help you achieve this. In fact, one of my favorite things about working in larger tech companies has been engineers having the right answers to my questions. While the right answer is oftentimes just an optimal decision based off trade-offs, the trade-offs and alternative solutions are always weighed. Compare this to my experience in startups, and I found that the right answer is often arrived at because someone is most passionate about their solution or they metaphorically yell the loudest. Interacting with and learning from engineers who can teach you the right way to develop software can enhance the rate at which you learn, which is truly invaluable. I really believe that by working at the right company, surrounded by the right people, you can learn and develop your skill sets faster than if you work in seemingly comparable environments. By the time software engineers working in big tech are clad with the knowledge of how to design and build fault-tolerant and scalable systems with good code hygiene, it's very possible that multiple years have passed. After all, software is complicated. And like we all know, working in big tech is extremely lucrative, especially for those who have been there for an extended period of time. Put these two together, and software engineers who have worked in big tech for an extended period of time probably have achieved financial independence and saved a nice nest egg for themselves. And at this point, being able to afford more financial risk, I found that many engineers get the itch to try something different, especially working at any company for a significant period of time. Things can get stale and people start thinking about new opportunities. You become jaded to the fact that the changes that you personally make might affect billions of users. You're frustrated by the painfully slow, siloed development process that your company adheres to, and you're tired just thinking about the idea of planning for your third promotion. Instead, the idea of moving faster to a smaller company, taking on more responsibility, and receiving a level bump for joining is extremely enticing. And this brings us to our third stage in most software engineers' career journeys, which is joining a startup. And I know it sounds hilarious because we've come full circle. Most people start their software engineering journeys at a startup, but let me explain because there's actually a very big difference here. In the first stage, you are wherever you are because you have no better alternatives. In other words, beggars can't be choosers. Fast forward to the third stage, and you actually get to selectively hand aside the startups that you might want to work at, because in the very worst case, you're still stuck at a 100,000 plus person company, playing ping pong during work hours and getting paid for it, and eating mochi ice cream multiple times a day. Not bad. But if you are brave enough to make the leap of faith to a fast-growing startup, chances are you've done so on your own terms and at a title, compensation, and responsibility scope that you feel good about. And this is where engineers can really win. Instead of collecting yearly compensations in the hundreds of thousands, which is still insane, engineers are playing a pseudo lottery where they're hoping that their startup is the next unicorn rocketing to an IPO, where their paydays can be more in the ballpark of several millions or more depending on when they join the company and how much equity they possess. Of course, like any lottery ticket, you can still lose, but hey, apparently that's the risk you were willing to take. Selectively joining a smaller startup also has other, less financially motivated benefits as well, like choosing the market that you work in, the tech stack that you build in, or the culture of the company that you're joining. And while owning 8% of a company, building in Rust, and enjoying a 4-day work week every week does sound pretty amazing, not everyone opts for this life. Many engineers in big tech simply stay in big tech, and maybe just hop between companies whose names might rhyme with Feta, Chapel, and Frugal, to name a few. Now for the tips that you can use to fast track yourself to a company that will help you learn. First, study data structures and algorithms early. That's what's tested during interviews. Second, network and apply to internships early. More experiences will help you get more experiences. 3, surround yourself with people who encourage you to do things that are good for your career. I didn't go to the library because I wanted to. I went because my friends pushed me to. If you enjoyed this video, drop the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys next time.